The room went still. Not the kind of still that's peaceful, the kind that grabs you by the throat. The lawyer barely looked up when he started reading. And just like that, he said her name, Hannah, over and over and over again. Each time he said it, I felt my stomach tighten. Each word wrapped in legal formality, but none of it touched me. Because none of it was for me. Every asset, every heirloom, every sentence in that will belonged to her. Not me. Not once. Not even a mention. I didn't blink. I didn't move. I just sat there like furniture in a room no one remembers putting there. And when it was over, when the folder closed with that soft final click, she leaned toward me. Her perfume hit first, something expensive and artificial. Then she whispered, low and sweet, "Guess Dad really did love me more." I smiled, not because it was funny, but because I didn't know what else to do with the sound of my heart splintering. Hi, I'm Rachel. I'm 27, and I just sat through my own father's will like a ghost in my own family story. But this didn't start today. My sister Hannah has always worn the invisible crown. She didn't walk into rooms. She made entrances. Perfect. Grades. Perfect makeup. Perfect lies. And me? I was the other one. The quiet one. The one who knew where the flashlights were during blackouts. The one who made the tea and remembered the pills. I gave up college the day Dad had his first stroke. She posted a crying selfie from the airport and got 4,000 likes. I canceled a birthday dinner with the one person who might have loved me back because I had to change a catheter and wash blood off the floor tiles. She flew in for 5 minutes. Brought gluten-free muffins and a new scarf for Dad. Took pictures with him in the garden. Captioned it, "Grateful for our time together." Then left, and the family? They clapped. They clapped for her. Like grief could be measured in Instagram posts. But I stayed. I stayed when Dad threw food across the room. When he called me Mary for 2 months straight because he couldn't remember my name. When the nurses quit and I had to bathe him myself. When he cried in the middle of the night and begged me, without words, to make it stop. He couldn't talk much, but he didn't have to. We had a rhythm. He'd tap twice on the table when he wanted tea. He'd squeeze my hand once when he was tired, twice when he was thankful. He used to say I was the calm in the storm. That's what he called me. My calm. So when he died, when I sat at his funeral and heard people say he was a man of precision and honor, I thought maybe, just maybe, he left something behind. Some small note. Some acknowledgement. Anything to say he saw me. But that will? That carefully printed, notarized, legally binding document. It said, Hannah. Over and over and over. And Rachel. Rachel was a rumor, a typo, an afterthought that never made it past the edit. Not the sleepless nights, not the sobs in the kitchen, not the burned-out jobs or missed rent or the time I got pneumonia and still showed up at the hospital. No thank you, no goodbye, not even a single line, just silence, and Hannah's smile. And then, just as the room started shifting into polite murmurs and fake grief hugs, the lawyer cleared his throat. There's one more letter. That's when her face changed. I don't know what she expected, but it wasn't that. Her jaw locked. Her hand froze halfway into her designer purse, and for the first time in years, she didn't have something clever to say. I sat up straighter. Not because I was ready, but because something in me refused to keep shrinking. A personal letter, he said. From your father, addressed only to Rachel. I didn't move, not right away, because when you've been invisible long enough, even being seen feels like a threat. I looked at Hannah. She wouldn't look back, just stared at the envelope in the lawyer's hand like it might explode, and for a moment, A split second, I thought, maybe this is it. Maybe this is the apology, the acknowledgement. The moment I get pulled back into the story I never got to write. But deep down, I knew better. I knew how this worked. In our family, love wasn't loud. It was conditional, measured, awarded like a prize and taken like a punishment. Still, I reached for the envelope, my name written in shaky cursive. No wax seal, no ribbon. Just truth waiting to be opened. And the second my fingers touched, I felt it. Not hope, not fear. Weight, the weight of 100 things that had never been said. The room fell away. The voices blurred. Because for the first time since Dad died, it wasn't Hannah's name being called. It was mine. And I hadn't heard it in a very, very long time. I didn't open the letter. Not that day. Not the next. He said it was meant for me. Only me. And yet it felt like holding a bomb I wasn't sure I wanted to defuse. The room had emptied after that. Hannah's warmth vanished like it had never been real to begin with. The lawyer's tone grew stiff, professional, like whatever humanity he'd offered was now officially off the clock. People filed out quietly. No one looked at me directly. A few gave awkward pats on the shoulder, like I was furniture someone had accidentally bumped into. When I stepped outside, I wasn't sure what hurt more. The way my father had left me nothing, or the way Hannah looked back at me like I was the charity case. It was strange how loud the silence felt after that. The phone didn't ring. Not once. No. Are you okay? No. Want to talk? Not even a, hey, what did the letter say? The family group chat I used to respond to like clockwork? Dead air. Cousin Melissa posted pictures from brunch with Hannah, captioned, "Our new matriarch." And I was untagged. Calls I thought I'd get? Muted. Messages left on read. Even the neighbor who used to bring Dad soup during flu season now smiled at Hannah like she'd carried this family on her back. It was like I'd been erased with one legal signature. The same people who once called me a saint for stepping up now called Hannah strong for managing the estate. Strong. You want to know what strong looked like? Strong was coughing up blood one night from exhaustion and still showing up to take Dad to dialysis. Strong was not flinching when he forgot my name for the third week in a row. Strong was screaming into a pillow so no one would hear what caregiving had taken from me. But no one wants to hear that story. They want tidy endings, pretty daughters, and posts that match the flowers on the casket. I didn't want money. I didn't want a house. I just wanted to know I'd been seen, but instead, I got silence. And an envelope with my name on it that I couldn't bring myself to open. Because what if it said, "I'm sorry," but still left me with nothing? What if it confirmed the thing I feared most? That I'd spent years giving love that was never returned? I told myself it didn't matter. That I didn't need validation from a dead man. That I was used to being the overlooked one. The practical one. The one who kept the fire burning while everyone else danced around it. But grief has a strange way of clawing at the places you thought you'd made peace with. I'd pass by the old bookstore we used to go to. The one where Dad would sit in the corner and watch me read for hours. They still had that crooked little bench by the window. Still smelled like ink and old wood. And for a second I'd think, he remembered this place. He must have known how much it meant to me. Then I'd look down at my hands, the ones still calloused from pushing his wheelchair through snow, and wonder how someone could witness that kind of love and still write you out like a stranger. This wasn't grief. This was erasure. And I was disappearing by the day. One night I cracked. I called her, Hannah. I didn't want to fight. I just wanted to understand. Did Dad ever tell you why he did it like that? My voice shook. I hated that it did. She laughed, a short, sharp exhale that stung more than it should have. Maybe he finally realized who the real daughter was. Then she hung up. And that's when I stopped pretending. Stopped pretending like maybe this was a mistake. Or a misunderstanding. Because you don't laugh like that unless you've been waiting to win. I sat there, holding the phone like it could somehow explain the joke I was never in on. And across the room, the letter sat on my desk. Still sealed, still quiet. I walked over, picked it up. The paper was thick. The kind you choose when you're trying to leave something that lasts. My name was written in his handwriting. I knew it instantly. It wasn't as steady as it used to be. The R curled too soon. The L's leaned, but it was him. My dad. The man who let me brush his teeth when he couldn't hold the brush anymore. The man who used to tap twice on the counter for thank you. The man who forgot my name but never forgot my touch. My hands were shaking. My heart was, I don't even know. Not broken, just tired. And finally I opened it. I didn't know what I expected. A final gut punch? A vague apology? Maybe just a blank sheet that said, "Get over it." But what I found inside, what I read in that letter, changed everything I thought I knew about my father. And about myself. And, suddenly, I wasn't invisible anymore. I was something else entirely, something no one, not even Hannah, saw coming. Rachel, if you're reading this, then I wasn't strong enough to tell the truth while I was still here. That was the first line. And by the second, I had stopped breathing. It wasn't an apology. Not the kind you dream of when you're a kid still hoping someone will finally admit they were wrong. No. This was something else. A confession. He knew. Dad knew exactly what Hannah had done, how she cornered him, guilted him, played the perfect daughter with just enough sweetness to poison the truth, and he let it happen. He wrote her into the will. Not because she earned it, but because he was tired, afraid, conditioned to believe that love meant appeasement. But at the bottom of that letter, he left me something no one else knew about. A private trust, in my name. Funds from a land deal made years ago. Something small, something quiet. Not the house, not the silver, not the spotlight, but something mine. He wrote, I couldn't stop her from taking the house, but I wanted you to have the future I stole from you. I sat on my bed and read those lines until the ink blurred. I cried like I hadn't cried at the funeral. Not from grief, but from validation, from relief. Because for the first time, I felt seen. It wasn't just the money, it was proof. Proof I hadn't imagined it. The favoritism, the dismissal. The years I spent feeling like I was asking for too much just by existing. No, I hadn't imagined it. I had just survived it, and that changed everything. In the days that followed, something shifted. Quietly. No big declarations, no dramatic haircuts, or revenge plots. Just space. Breathing room. I moved into a tiny studio across town, 4th floor, no elevator, but it had a window that faced the sun at 8 a.m., and I swear, it felt like the first light I'd earned in years. I stopped checking Hannah's Instagram, stopped wondering if the cousins had posted more family brunches without me, stopped refreshing the group chat I wasn't part of anymore. I started writing again. Little things, journals, old memories that used to sting now felt distant. Like ghosts I could finally walk through without flinching. And one morning, I took the letter with me and visited the land he mentioned. It was just a patch of overgrown dirt, forgotten, unpolished, no fence, no sign. But I stood in the middle of it, letter in hand, and felt something I hadn't felt in years. Stillness. Not the kind that isolates you, the kind that holds you. like the earth saying, "You can start here." And that's when I made a decision, not for revenge, not for some grand performance, for reclamation. I didn't want to take back what Hannah stole. I wanted to build something she could never touch, because if you live long enough in someone else's shadow, there comes a moment where you realize you don't need the light, you just need the space to grow. I didn't tell anyone. Didn't post about it. Didn't update my status. I just started making calls, one to a lawyer, one to a planner, and one to a friend I hadn't spoken to in years, someone who once told me I had vision. And somewhere in between comparing quotes and sketching possibilities on napkins, I remembered something Dad used to say during his good days. Some things are built to last, but the best things, they're built when no one's looking. So that's what I did. I started building. Not to prove a point, but because I finally understood. Hannah didn't win. She just got louder. But me? I was done. Being quiet out of politeness. I was going to be quiet on purpose. Strategic, steady, still. Because silence isn't always weakness. Sometimes, it's where strength begins. And while she posed with Dad's portrait for her next sympathy post, I was building something with roots. Something she would never see coming. Something with my name on it. Not because someone gave it to me, but because I claimed it. I didn't rush. I planned. Quietly. First, I hired an architect, someone who listened when I said I wanted light, space, soft corners. Then a lawyer, one who specialized in foundations, not fights. Then a contractor. Piece by piece, brick by brick, I began building. Something on that land Dad left me. But it wasn't a house. And it definitely wasn't for Hannah. It was a retreat. For caregivers. For the invisible ones. The women who cancel their dreams to wipe down IV stands. The men who feed their mothers. By hand and cry in stairwells when no one is looking. People like me, quiet, clean, simple. Books, big windows. No clocks in the rooms, no fluorescent lights, just peace. It was funded by the trust my father left me. And I named it after the thing he used to say with his fingers, when words failed him. 2 taps, always the same. Thank you. The thank. You house. No one knew it was mine. Not at first. I didn't post updates, didn't ask for help, didn't explain. While Hannah hosted charity galas with his name, I was honoring the parts of him no one else ever saw. Meanwhile, she assumed I'd disappeared. She never reached out, and I didn't need her to, because sometimes silence isn't a gap, it's a boundary, and I finally knew the difference. But then, I did something poetic, not petty, not loud, just perfectly timed. I sent invitations, beautiful cream-colored cards with gold foil and quiet elegance. To everyone in our family, cousins, aunts, uncles, even the ones who'd accidentally left me off their Christmas lists. An invitation to the grand opening of the thank you house. No backstory, no explanation. Just my full name at the bottom, Rachel. Emberly, founder. That name hadn't been spoken in years, not fully. People shortened it, softened it, erased pieces of it like I wasn't worth the extra syllables, but not anymore. The day of the opening they came, dressed in stiff suits and curated smiles, ready to shake hands and eat mini quiches. No one recognized me right away. I blended in, not out of shame, but because I wanted to see their faces. When it clicked, and when I stepped out to give the welcome speech, everything stopped. I watched it hit them. Like watching a mirror crack from the inside. Some blinked, some whispered. A few tried to clap before realizing no one else was. But Hannah, she stood dead still, clutching her purse like it might anchor her to the ground. Because in that moment, she realized I didn't just move on. I transcended. I hadn't fought her for the past. I had built my future. and it was standing around her, brick, glass, an undeniable truth. I spoke slowly. Not to gloat, but because the truth doesn't need to hurry. I thanked the attendees for supporting caregivers, talked about invisible labor, talked about healing spaces. And I smiled. Not the brittle, practiced smile I used to wear around Hannah, but something gentler, wider, real. After the speech, people came up to me, shaking my hand, asking questions. Some looked embarrassed they hadn't recognized me. Others looked ashamed they'd never really tried. But Hannah didn't speak. Not a word. She stayed behind everyone else, her mouth tight and her eyes unreadable. Later, I found her alone, standing in one of the reading rooms, tracing her fingers, over a quote I'd had carved into the wall, to the ones who stayed when no one else would. "This house is for you." She turned when she saw me, and for a second, I saw it. That flicker. Not guilt, not remorse. Recognition. The recognition that I had done something she couldn't. I had created something lasting. Something with soul. I handed her a sealed envelope. She didn't say anything. She just looked at it, then at me. Inside, a copy of Dad's letter. The real one. The one only I had read. No threats, no conditions, no gotcha ending. Just the truth. I left her standing, there, letter in hand, and I never looked back. But I don't need to guess what her face looked like when she read it, because I already know. I know what it feels like to have the version of reality you've carefully built unravel. To be handed the truth when you've lived so long inside a lie, and still, even after everything, she never admitted it out loud. Not once, and somehow, that told me everything I needed to know. She never apologized, not in words. Not in any of the ways I used to beg for as a kid, the ones where someone finally says, "You were right, I was wrong." But silence? Silence can scream louder than regret. And hers did. A month after the eye. Grand opening. I got a letter. No return address. Just my name, 2 lines. Guess he did love you more. Can I visit the retreat sometime? I stared at it for a while. Felt nothing at first. Then, something strange. Not anger, not satisfaction. Just peace. I didn't reply. Not because I was bitter, but because I wasn't that girl anymore. Not the one waiting for a seat at their table. Not the one rehearsing the perfect response that would finally make them see me. Not the one who begged to be chosen. I don't need to be chosen. I chose myself. Back then, I would have read that letter over and over. I would have cried. I would have felt guilty for making her feel small, even though she'd spent years making me feel invisible. But now? Now I just folded the letter and tucked it into a drawer. Not to revisit it, just to file it away. Like old paperwork. Dad once said, "I failed you in life. But I hope this gives you peace." And it did. But not for the reason he thought. It wasn't the trust fund. Or the land. Or even the retreat. It was something quieter. Something deeper. The kind of peace that comes when you no longer need proof to believe your own story. Because the truth is, I'm not the forgotten daughter. I'm not the caretaker. I'm not even the one who stayed behind. I'm the one who rebuilt, who took nothing and made space, who turned a sealed letter into a sanctuary. Now I sit on a bench overlooking the garden we planted at the retreat. There's rosemary for memory, lavender for peace, and jasmine because it only blooms in the quiet. People come here now. People like me. The quiet ones. The real ones. The ones who gave everything and got nothing, except the aching belief that maybe that was their role all along. But not anymore. Because here, their names are on plaques, their stories are on the walls, and no one gets erased. Sometimes I hear visitors reading that same quote Hannah touched the day of the opening, to the ones who stayed when no one else would. This house is for you. They pause. Some cry. Some smile. And in those moments, I feel it. Legacy. Not the kind you inherit, the kind you build. I used to think power came from being loud, being right, being chosen. But I was wrong. Power is knowing who you are when no one's watching. When there's no applause, when you don't need to win because you've already walked away. So, to anyone listening, to anyone who's been silenced, replaced, or forgotten, you don't have to scream to be powerful. You just have to stop. Waiting for permission. Because the day I opened that final letter wasn't the end of his story. It was the beginning of mine. At the will reading, I got nothing. Not a penny. Not a house. Not even a mention. But now, I have everything. A place, with my name on it. A life no one can steal, and a truth no one can bury. She said Dad loved her more. But in the end, he left me the truth.